My name is Mark Flewelling. I'm the Vice President of the Sussex District Chamber of Commerce. It's my pleasure tonight to look out and welcome you, as well as welcome the candidates. And I see so many people. When I first came in, I was chatting and I said, well, if you expect, like 7, because you set the bar low, and you get more than that, it's awesome. So what an awesome group. And it's nice to see so many people come out that really want to learn more about the candidates, learn more about their party platforms, and learn more about our local riding and what the plans are. So I really hope we get a lot to take away from that. During the last half hour, I hope you've all had a chance to mingle, ask questions of the candidates. And as we go forward tonight, during the question and answer period, please ask as many questions as you can within the time frame so that we can all learn and we can all walk away with more of an opinion on how we might cast our ballot on September 20th. Over here this evening, our program is going to be recorded, and thanks to Rogers TV. That will be played back, airtime in a few days, and then it will be on to YouTube. So I would ask you follow our Facebook page to see when the airtime will be, and we'll have that posted. So without further ado, Harley Wright is our chairperson tonight. She's also our moderator. She is going to take over. She was now going to read the rules and the regulations of the format tonight. So without further ado, Harley, it's over to you.
Hi, everyone. So candidates will have 3 minutes to expand upon their political platform. The format of the presentation is at the discretion of the candidate. The timer will give a 30-second warning and ring a bell at the end of the allotted time. No candidate will be allowed more than their allotted time, and the chair will ask the candidate to be seated. During the question period, questions from the chamber will be asked first, followed by questions received from the floor. The public will identify themselves and address a question to one or all candidates. The chair will attempt to let everyone have response time to the public questions. The chair will rule out of order any questions deemed inappropriate, offensive, and derogatory, or that would seem to attack the integrity of any candidate. The chair will rule out of order any person who is unreasonably attempts to use the question period as a platform for expressing a point of view on any issue. Answers to questions will be limited to 3 minutes in order to maximize the number of questions allowed. If each member of the public could ask only one question until all questions have been asked, then they may ask another. Candidates will have 3 minutes after the question period to summarize their platform. The chair will have final jurisdiction in all matters. Introduction of the candidates in order of speaking of the draw. So first off, Josh Floyd from the NDP. He's got a little blurb here as he was unavailable to make it. So on behalf of Josh, I apologize. I was unable to be here this evening due to work commitments. It was important to me to be able to provide answers to the questions for this evening, and wanted to also share some information about myself and some of my priorities this election. I wish I was able to be there this evening with you all. If anyone has any questions for me about myself or the NDP, please contact him directly, not a staff member or volunteer, as I feel it is the duty of a member of Parliament to engage with people directly and be riding focused. So number 1 is Rob Moore. Hello. Everybody too? Okay. All right. And could we have number 2, Tim Thompson? Number 3, Whitney Dyckman. And number 4, Wayne Wheeler. And you can go ahead and...
Me? Okay. Good evening, everybody. Nice to see everyone. Before our opening remarks, we were asked to just introduce ourselves. So I'm Rob Moore. I've been the Member of Parliament for Fundy Royal, and it is an honor to serve the people of Fundy Royal. I live in Quispamsis with my family, my wife Melinda, and 2 daughters and 2 sons. We're an active family. They're all into hockey and other things, so that keeps us very busy. But it's wonderful to see everybody, and we'll be introducing our platform right after this. So thank you for being here.
Hi there, I'm Tim Thompson, and I was originally from Quispamsis. My mother's here, so came from a single family home where there was 5 of us. I currently live in the Belle Isle, operating a small hobby farm, mostly just poultry, that my friend Stephanie, who's here, has helped us along the way. I work on the base in Gagetown, Canadian Forces Base Gagetown, as a military reservist. Full-time, and I've been doing that for 14 years. Fundy Royal has been my home and is my home, and it's where I want to be. I love every portion of this riding, and I'm very happy to be here today. Thanks.
Hi. Good evening, everyone. My name is Whitney Dyckman, and I am a proud New Brunswicker. I graduated from JMA Armstrong High School in Salisbury a few years ago. I then went on to school in Montreal for a few years and had a small Western trip to Vancouver to visit Expo out there. So I've sort of lived from coast to coast in this country, but I came home and raised a family for over 25 years in the Hillsborough area. I am proud to be here tonight. I'm proud to represent Fundy Royal and the people in the riding. I think we have a great platform to roll out to you tonight, so I'm excited for our future. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Wayne Wheeler, and I'm glad you're all out here tonight. I'm from Sussex. I've been here since 1965. Been working across Canada the last 15, 20 years. Away from home wasn't a good thing. Sort of retired. It's not on my bucket list to do this, but someone had to step up, and that's why I'm here, to help everybody get through this. We're in a spot where things are getting critical, and in my opinion, and I'm here to help as best I can. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So, Rob, you can have the floor.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody, for being here. And first, I want to thank the Chamber for putting this on. I know it's not easy, and in these days, there was the threat of possible rain. And I'm glad it worked out tonight. I'm glad that all of you are able to be here. I want to recognize a few people that are here. My friend and colleague from New Brunswick Southwest, Member of Parliament John Williamson is here. So, John, thank you for joining us. As many people realize with these crazy big ridings that we have, sometimes the lines don't make sense, and the small community of Appahawk is actually split right down the middle. So John has a big interest in what happens in the Sussex area. I want to recognize as well, former MLA Bill Harmer is here. Bill was the former MLA for Petitcodiac for years. He's been a former minister, and Bill, you know, he's someone that's always been politically involved. Thank you for being here, Bill. And I want to also recognize our former Member of Parliament here in Fundy Royal that's joined us as well. Really appreciate all the work that she's done over 4 years. And she's was a strong Member of Parliament, strong representative, and worked hard for the riding. So, Elena, appreciate you being here as well. Ladies and gentlemen, we probably shouldn't be here tonight, and we're going to get into that in the debate, but we shouldn't be having this election. This election was called so that the Prime Minister could go from a minority to a majority. But the fact is, we have to deal with that. As Canadians, we're blessed to live in a democratic country. We're blessed to live here in New Brunswick, and we have a big decision to make about who's best to lead us in the recovery. And as Conservatives, we have a plan to strengthen our economy, to bring back jobs that have been lost, and to bring back development to New Brunswick and right here in Fundy Royal. I've got a strong track record for delivering results for Fundy Royal, and I want to continue to be able to do that work. So I appreciate you taking the time to listen, and I appreciate each and one of these candidates that have put their name forward. Both Wayne and Whitney and Tim, I've gotten to know them a little bit over the campaign. They're all working hard, and I commend anyone that puts their name out there for the people. So thank you all for being here, and thank you for your participation.
Thank you, Rob. Tim?
Hi there. I'm going to start by saying that we are on the unceded territory of the Wolastoqey people, and it's covered by the Treaties of the Truth and Friendship, which was first signed by the British Crown in 1725. There's been thousands of children's bodies found across this country in residential schools, and it's very important that we acknowledge our past and our history in order to be able to move forward together with our Indigenous partners and our Indigenous family. So it is very important that we acknowledge that and we can move together forward. Quick thank you to Rob for his time as Member of Parliament, both this sitting and in the past. And I will certainly acknowledge Elena Lockhart, who was the last progressive Member of Parliament in this riding. So welcome, and welcome to everybody else here. I'm glad that you're here this evening to hear about our platforms. It is paramount that every single person learns about their candidate and learns about the party platform. Even the people on my team, I tell them to, meet Whitney, meet Rob, meet Wayne. Go learn about the platform. It's important that you're doing that because you need to make an educated decision on how you want to vote and how you want this country to be run. In the past year, we've been dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. We've seen forest fires across the country. We've seen extreme weather, an entire community lit up in flames in the West. We have floods across the world. Most recently, in New York City, had to declare a state of emergency for the first time because of flooding. Climate change is real. Climate change is all around us right now. It is not a natural phenomenon. It's something that we are causing and enforcing with human behavior. We need to act now, and the Green Party of Canada is the only party that has a full plan to deal with that will also protect oil and gas workers like my two brothers that are living in the West, working on the pipeline. It will protect them to transition into a green economy. We need a government that can do that, and the Green Party has a full plan to do that to make sure that we don't leave any Canadian behind. Furthermore to that, social justice is extremely important. We need to be protecting human rights. So rights of women with universal daycare. We need to protect LGBTQ rights with banning and ensuring that conversion therapy stays banned, ensuring that we have same-sex marriage is permitted in Canada. We need to ensure that all human rights, people of color, that we are making Canada an opportunity for them to succeed. For every single Canadian, no one is entitled to this country or do anything better than anybody else. We need to ensure that our country is prosperous for every single individual. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. And Whitney?
Good evening, everyone. Thanks again for coming out this evening. I'm sure everyone, because of COVID-19, is a little apprehensive when coming out to events like this. So I do appreciate the support that you're showing all of the candidates here tonight. And I know that one of us will be successful in this riding, and the rest of us will have to walk away. So I'm hoping that tonight will give you some insight into the platforms that we all have to offer. I think we have some commonality across the board, regardless of the color that we're flying under. I think we want a better Canada, and I think we want to emerge from COVID-19. So I think that is the biggest things and the biggest tickets that we'll be looking at with the Liberal platform. This is our moment to decide what kind of future that we want for Canada, for our kids and for our grandkids. So this is a big decision to make. And since 2015, the Liberals have made life comfortable for Canadians. They've made life more affordable. We've fought climate change. We've created jobs, and we grew the middle class. So this plan has been working so far for us. So when COVID-19 hit, what did the Liberals do? We supported Canadians. And how did we do that? We did that through the Canadian Emergency Subsidiary and the support to business on the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidiary. So with those elements to support our businesses and our employees, we kept the lights on in businesses. We kept the rent going for people who wanted to continue on. And we kept food on the table for Canadians. Those are important elements. And sometimes I think when we were in the election, we look back and we don't see those things, but those were very valuable as we go ahead in our future. So from fighting climate change to creating more green jobs to creating better health care for our senior citizens and all citizens of this country, the Liberal has a plan to support this. We have done more to fight climate change than any other government in the history of Canada. We will continue to do so, but what we need to do right now is to continue to support and fight against COVID-19. And what does that look like, and what do we need to do? Well, we need to continue to get vaccinated. It's important to do our part, and that's why we need to do that to get our job done for our neighbors, for our children, for the citizens in Sussex, and for our immediate family and friends that we're in touch with on a daily basis. There's still so much to do for Canada to move forward, but this is an important element to do this and finish the fight against COVID. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Whitney. And Wayne?
Thank you. I'm going to welcome you all here again, and thanks for being here. And I'm going to say I'm not a talker. I'm not a speaker, so I'm going to get down to brass tacks here. This is going to be probably one of the most serious elections we've had in quite a while. And we're talking about the climate change. We're talking about immigration. We're talking about the human rights and stuff like that. Okay. Well, have you ever seen a government tax you and change the weather? Hasn't happened. They can't tax you. It's not going to happen. Have you ever seen, they're talking about human rights, and yet they're stomping all over them right now. So, like I say, I'm not a talker. I'm not the one that's going to stand here and I guess, blow wind up your skirt, just like that. But it's like for COVID, the vaccines, it should be your choice. Everybody has a choice. It shouldn't be mandated. No one knows what's in these things. So we'll just go for that. I'll leave it at that. Like say for the climate, sure. We can do better, but let the provinces do it. Things like that. So and I'm going to get to a little bit of what the PPP stand for. Like we got the immigration reform, and that's good. Bring the people here. We don't mind that. Everything's based on common sense and fairness and I can't think of the word fairness. Fairness, like your personal responsibility for everybody, not just the government. Everybody. We can't do it by ourselves. The government can't do it. Everybody's got to work together to do it. And it's protecting free rights and forging national unity. Sure. That's what we should be doing. We can get on with the Indians, the indigenous people, and we can work with them. Everybody can work with them. We can all stand up there and do that. But we got to start doing this stuff on common sense. We can't just start blowing money like we've been doing. It's crazy. And everybody's sitting on their butt getting nothing, or getting the $2,000 and doing nothing. It's not right. So, I mean, I guess it's up to you guys. It's, like I say, it's going to be one of the most historic elections that we're going to have. And like I say, I'm not a speaker, so I'm going to sit down and be quiet now. Thank you kindly.
Thank you, Wayne. Before we get into the first question here, our timer over here, she'll raise her hand at your 30-second mark, and then she'll ring the bell at the 3 minutes. So our first question from the chamber is, what is your party going to do to support communities as we come out of the pandemic? Is this support going to target businesses that have been hardest hit, or all businesses in general? We'll start with Rob.
Well, that's a great question, and I want to start by commending the Sussex Chamber, because back a few years ago, when the government brought in changes to the small business tax rules that treated small business owners as tax cheats and meant that if you were passing your family farm onto a son or daughter, it would cost you more in tax than if you sold to a foreign multinational. It was Atlantic Canada that stood up, and one of the first meetings that was held in all of Canada on that issue was a joint meeting between the Sussex Chamber of Commerce and the Hampton Chamber of Commerce. And to keep it neutral, they met in Norton, but we had a meeting, and through that we heard the concerns, we heard from experts, we heard from tax experts, and we were able to push back on what was a very bad plan. Well, likewise, this is a major challenge as we move towards recovery. As I travel around Fundy Royal, the number one issue I'm hearing is from small business is the inability to hire new staff that they need. So we are bringing in a focus on creating jobs, and the way government creates jobs is not with fancy new programs, but to allow business to do what they do best. And the businesses in this community, they know what to do, they know how to run their business, but they have to be given the tools to do that right now, because right now the government is paying people not to work, and we have to transition to a point where we're encouraging people to take the jobs that are available in Fundy Royal. So to that end, two programs. One is the Rebuild Main Street Tax Credit, and that is to provide assistance for businesses that are expanding, businesses that are trying to survive, and it would be an amount up to $200,000 a loan, and the ability to have some of that forgiven. The other is the Explore and Support Canada program, similar to what New Brunswick is doing, but allowing people, when they're spending money in their community, when they stay right here in Fundy Royal and they go to a restaurant or they go to a tourism destination, that money, they can get a credit on their tax for that. We need to encourage people now, as in a stage of recovery, to spend money locally, spend money in our communities. And we need to invest in infrastructure. That means 30 seconds, right?
Yes.
We need to invest in infrastructure, and I have a proven track record on delivering infrastructure for this community that I'll talk about in a bit. But that's part of our plan, is investing in the priorities of communities like right here in Sussex, so we can get people working and building again.
Thank you, Rob. And Tim?
We'll start off by answering the question, which is we're going to invest in small businesses. So in small businesses represent the majority of the workforce in Canada, way more than large corporations. So it's very important that we're going to be investing in small businesses. And so how we're going to do that, we're going to start with jumping off and springboarding off where we are right now with the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy and the Canada Emergency Rent Subsidy. We're not going to change those, and we're not going to get rid of them. We're going to streamline that and continue doing it until COVID-19 pandemic is over and the country has lifted every single one of the restrictions. It's important that we're supporting Canadians. It's important that we're supporting small businesses when they're dealing with COVID-19, having a hard time getting employees because they don't have the right training, or employees because they're getting a CERB check, which deters them from going to work. So we need to change how we manage the government and change what we're doing in Canada in order to support our local businesses, and the Green Party wants to do that. We'll hold the tax rate at 9% for small businesses, and we're going to ensure, which everyone else will talk about, that every rural area has affordable and good bandwidth internet. I come from a rural place in Belle Isle. I have terrible internet service, And if in order to get good internet service, you need to spend $1,000. So it needs to be affordable, and it needs to be available for all businesses and all citizens. It is a human right now in 2021. We're going to establish a federally funded green venture capital fund of $1 billion that will support only small businesses for green ventures. Also, we will subsidize the implementation of a new clean technology across all small and medium-sized businesses. So how are you going to do that? Where is this money going to come from? Number one, we're not going to subsidize large corporations after the election. So if the Green Party was to form government, or any Green member of Parliament will fight to stop subsidizing large corporations. We can use that money to support small businesses to grow the economy here in Sussex and across the country. Thanks.
Thank you, Tim. Whitney?
Hi, everyone. I thought I would beat the time clock and remove my microphone in advance. I seem to be struggling with that tonight. And I'm going to have my notes because I'm better with notes, so sorry for that. So first off, I just want to talk about one point. There has been some talk about the CERB benefit, and how that's enabled people to stay home and receive that $2,000 a month benefit. I think people not returning to work here in the Fundy Royal region and probably in other places within our country, I think it speaks to something deeper. I don't necessarily think they don't want to return to work, but I do think that we have to question what a living wage is. And perhaps that's that. Thank you. And perhaps that's the deeper question and the deeper issue that we should be looking at. Not so much the $2,000, because most people want to work. Most people don't want to sit home. They do want to go. And I want to also point out, without that wage subsidy, how would people have fed themselves last year? How would they have kept the lights on and food on the table? So I just want to say it's part of a bigger picture. I don't think we can say it's one thing that people just don't want to work, because I don't believe that's true. I really, really don't. So I just wanted to clear that up. All right, I'm good now. So what are we going to do about getting us back on track? So we have a number of initiatives that are on and I'm going to check my notes, because I noticed the last time that I got the acronyms wrong and did not come up through on that. So we'll be moving forward with our commitment to create 1 million jobs and restore employment to pre-pandemic levels. We're going to be introducing a new EI benefit for self-employed Canadians, providing up to $15,500 when it's needed most. We'll expand the Canada Workers Benefit to support an additional 1 million low incomes. That would lift 100,000 Canadians out of poverty. We will double the Union Training and Innovation Program to $50 million a year to support more training opportunities and target more participation from women, Indigenous people, newcomers, persons with disabilities, Black and racialized Canadians. So that all sounds wonderful, but a re-elected Liberal government will also extend the Canada Recovery Hiring Program to March the 31st so businesses can hire more people back to work, and provide Canada's hard-hit tourism industry with a temporary wage and rent support of up to 75% of their expenses to help them through the winter. It's also important to note that the new budget has a $1 million tourism package to support local businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Whitney. Wayne?
Thank you. Well, I guess I'm going to say I might be the only conservative up here. The economy was doing good before we got locked down, and we didn't have to lock down. We could have protected the vulnerable people and kept the businesses open. Simple as that. And it's hard for me to talk about that because my blood pressure goes up. But anyway, so the PPC, they got fiscal responsibility. They want to have in 4 years balance the budget. They want to get out of your pocket. They want to get rid of regulations and let businesses do what they do best. Create jobs. And when we're creating jobs, the economy grows, their wages grow, We should have pipelines running all across Canada. We should have everything that the oil and gas is what do you call it? A great job maker, a great economy for the economy. It makes all the money that people need right at the moment, and there's nothing wrong with oil and gas in my books. We need carbon. Carbon needs to... Your plants grow on carbon. You have to have carbon. So we can't reduce it to zero. There's nothing will grow. Common sense tells you that. You got to be up. It's up around 800 parts per million, or 1,500 parts per million. You go down to a greenhouse, and they're pumping carbon into a greenhouse for your plants to grow. So we don't need to be spending money on carbon and carbon taxes. Have you ever seen a government spend the money on reducing it? Have they reduced carbon taxes anywhere in Canada yet? BC's doubled, and they've had a carbon tax for over 10 years. Maybe it's not double, but it's rose. Whatever it was, they've never reduced it. It's always gone up. And they've had a carbon tax for I don't know how many years now. Longer than we've had it, federally. So, I mean, it's beyond belief. And they want to create the jobs by getting the people, the businesses, get out of their pocket. Let them do what they do. So when they get the 4 years, get the balanced budget, and then start reducing stuff, reducing the taxes, reducing the taxes on business, reducing your taxes. Wouldn't that be great? You know, we need this. We need common sense. We need common sense in Ottawa.
Thank
and
you,
it's
Wayne.
pretty hard. Thanks.
Please be seated. So, question number 2. In the greater Sussex community, we have a housing shortage. Housing prices are going up at a rate exceeding inflation. Rental properties, particularly for families, are costing more than families have to spend on accommodation. What will your party do to support affordable housing in rural towns like Sussex? Rob?
Well, that's a great and timely question from the Chamber, because housing prices are exceeding, the increase in housing prices is exceeding inflation. And as we all know, the price of everything has been going up: groceries, fuel, and housing. And it's something that is a challenge for first-time home buyers. So one of the things that we've committed to do is reduce the stress test that first-time home buyers have to have before receiving a mortgage. The other thing we need to do is reduce the foreign money flowing into the Canadian housing market. What's happening in some of Canada's larger cities is money's flowing in from people that have no prospect of ever living in Canada, but they're buying houses on speculation, driving the cost up in those jurisdictions, which in turn drives it up in our own jurisdiction. And the thing that came up recently that I think is paramount for all Canadians to whoever aspire to own a home, or Canadians that own a home, is back in 2016, CRA started requiring that when you filed your taxes, you put on there if you sold your principal residence. And people wondered, well, what's that all about? Because as you all know, when you sell your principal residence, there's no capital gains tax on it. So if you're a senior that bought your house maybe in the 70s and you sell it now, that money is part of your retirement. And it's something you can count on. And if you're a second-time home buyer, you can use the money from the sale of your first home to purchase your next home. And I want to make it very clear that as a Conservative Party, we stand totally against the taxation of someone's principal residence. That's important for all of us. That's something that has been the case in Canada for a very long time, and we need to make sure we keep it that way. We know some of the other parties are talking about that, and it's absolutely wrong. If you bought a house years ago for $100,000 and sell it for $200,000, 20, 30 years later, that is not a gain because the cost of everything has gone up. What that is a nest egg, and it's something that people need to use, whether they're seniors looking to retire or downsize. We all know that the cost of housing has gone up. Taking the proceeds from the sale of someone's house would be wrong. So those are the things that we're going to do when we form government.
Thank you, Rob. Tim?
I'm going to start by saying the Green Party's platform is based on fact and scientific fact. So we need to first start by taking people that know more than us and acknowledging that they have that knowledge and then pass it on. So the Green Party is full of scientific fact, and that's what we're trying to pass it on to you. The housing and affordable homelessness, the Green Party would immediately declare a housing emergency in Canada. This is a housing emergency across Canada. It's not only affecting the people of Sussex. It's not only affecting Fundy Royal. It's across this nation we have homeless people. Before the pandemic, so this is before the pandemic, 1.6 million people lived in unsuitable, inadequate, or unaffordable housing. Housing is guaranteed to you under the United Nations Charter. So we need to ensure that we have housing. Every single night in Canada, over 35,000 people are homeless. Every single night. So what will we do to solve that? We're going to strengthen regulations on foreign investments and create an empty tax home on those houses only. So on foreign investors, if they have empty houses, we will tax them to make sure that those houses do not stay empty. We're going to retroactively, in arrears, give assistance to people that have not been able to pay their rent for the past pandemic, for the few months. We're going to contribute financially to them so they can stay in their homes, so they're not evicted from their homes. During the pandemic, we're going to put in regulations so that you cannot be evicted from your place based on financial reasons or renovations, which are happening throughout the country and throughout the province. Another very important part of housing, the housing network here, is transit. We live in a rural community, I know, but it doesn't mean that we can't have access to transit. So access to transit, it will help with housing. And so providing affordable public transit in Fundy Royal and throughout Canada is extremely important, and we're going to do that with green investment in Canada to ensure that every single citizen can get around their own city and around their country. The last time that the last time the cost of living was this high, just so everyone is aware, is when the Conservatives were last in power. So we need to remember when you're going to the ballot that the last time that this happened was when the Conservatives were in power. The last thing that we would introduce is a universal basic income. A universal basic income has been tried across the country and across the world, and it provides enough money for people to be lifted out of poverty so they can afford their housing and food. And it does not have anything that deters you from working. So the CERB did absolutely carry people through the pandemic. The only thing is we should not have put a cap on it, not allowing you to go to work.
Thank you, Tim. Whitney?
Hi, everyone. First, I just want to point out one myth buster, if you will. I've seen it on the internet, and I've gotten some feedback on social media that the Liberal platform will be taxing the primary residence when you sell it. That's not true. That is not in our platform. That has never been in our platform, and we understand the value of a home and people who have worked hard all their lives to pay off their mortgage and paid $100,000 for their home, and now can get $400,000, and we say, good for you. That's how we get by. That's how we retire healthily. So that's not true. So I just wanted to put that out there. The Liberal government has a wonderful house plan. So we recognize that this is an issue all across the country, for sure here locally in the Sussex area. We have a three-prong approach in our health plan. First of all, we want to unlock home ownership. Secondly, we want to build more homes. Third is to protect your rights. So how are we going to do that? So unlocking a home for everyone, introducing a new, I'm so excited about this. I wish they had had this when I was a young person. Not that I'm that old, but younger, let's put it like that. Introducing a new rent-to-own program, so I think that's brilliant. So that will help our young Canadians as they're renting save money for that house in a 5-year contract or whatever the term specifies. We'll work with contractors locally to support those agreements, and it'll give everyone an opportunity to buy their own home and enter the middle class. Helping Canadians under 40 save up to $40,000 with a home tax-free savings account will improve the first-time home buyer's incentive, will reduce closing costs when buying a home, and will reduce monthly mortgage rates as well as CMHC insurance rates. The second part is building homes. We're committed to building, repairing, or renovating 1.4 million homes in the next 4 years. And then the last plan is the introduction of a Bill of Rights for home buyers. Now, this is a really important one because we have seen the blind bidding that's gone on, people waiving home inspections, foreign investment in homes. Well, this Bill of Rights, this homeowner Bill of Rights, will protect all homeowners as they pursue their purchase. So with that, we will introduce the Bill of Rights, cracking down on house flipping as well, and temporarily banning new foreign home ownership for about 2 years to ensure that every Canadian has a house to call home. So the Liberals are the only team with a real plan to ensure that everyone has a home. So I hope you agree with me that this is a really robust and timely plan for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Whitney. Wayne?
Thank you. The Liberal policies, all this massive deficit spending and the money printing, that's where all these skyrocketing prices are coming from. And if all these economists, the top economists have predicted all this, so your housing and your food's all going up. And we can't do that no more. We got to use common sense. We can't print money. We got to get back on I can't think of the word. But you got to get back on the common sense rail anyway. And it, like, all these plans across here are all going to cost you more money. It's all more spending that we don't have. We don't have the money for that. We gotta start thinking of the fiscal responsibility and get these taxes and the budgets under control. We got to balance them within the 4 years and go from there, and start working with the people and the companies and get these things done. And now it's the questions is like for the rental properties and stuff like that. It's I'm not sure. We balance the budget. We can do something after that. But just on one point here, and it's got to do with the Liberal policy. You've all seen Justin Trudeau, and he said, you're going to own nothing and love it. You've all seen the video of that. You must have. So is that true that they're going to help you spend more money and rent to own and help you with your down payments? How's that possible? It's two different systems, or two different ways, and I don't know how that's going to work. But anyway, it's like I say, take the 4 years, get our budget under balance, start paying down the debt, and when we start paying down the debt, we can start helping the people in their businesses, start reducing the taxes, and that will create the jobs, that will create the people to be able to afford the houses. And I agree with Rob, it's for money. We got to stop that. And the flipping of the houses that's driving prices up. Yes, we can do something about that. But if we all work together and use common sense, we can do anything. And I'm going to give up my time here. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. So the third and final question from the Chamber. In the greater Sussex community, we have a shortage of employees with training and experience for positions that remain vacant. This has STEM businesses and community growth. What would you do to ensure that underemployed and unemployed locals without the skills and experience needed get the training and experience for these roles? And what would you do to attract employees to the community to fill these positions? Go ahead, Rob.
Well, thank you. And as I was mentioning, when I talk to small businesses, not just in the Sussex area, but throughout the riding of Fundy Royal, this is the number one issue that I hear. And some of it comes down to a basic philosophy in that as conservatives, we believe there should be incentives to work. We should reward work, and we shouldn't discourage people from taking available work. When CERB first came out, the emergency response benefit, it was $2,000 per month. But if you were a small business, number one, if you were a small business, you weren't eligible until we pushed to make entrepreneurs eligible. But if you were eligible, but you earned $1, you lost the entire $2,000. So as conservatives, we pushed and said, no, people are struggling to survive. They're struggling to heat their home, keep their business open. We need to allow Canadians to earn some money without losing this livelihood. So it was changed to allow someone to earn $1,000 and still not lose the CERB. Well, likewise, we need programs now that incentivize training and employment and taking available jobs. So a couple of those things. One is money to over 2 years to create the Canada Job Training Fund. That is to give laid off workers immediate help in training for those available jobs that we have right here in the region. The other is the Canada Job Surge Plan that would pay 25% of the salary of someone who is brought on in a new position. So someone that is currently not able to work, if a business brings them on, it would help for 6 months to pay some of that salary. We need to get people back to work, attract people to our communities, and it's only then that we'll have a sustainable local economy. New Brunswick, Fundy Royal, Sussex is a great place to live and work and raise a family. We see more and more people interested in coming here for those very things, but we have to address this labor shortage. It is an urgent issue, and we have a plan to address it.
Thank you, Rob. Tim?
Yeah, so first of all, we'll start with answering the question, which is how do we get skilled or unskilled people into skilled jobs? So how we're going to do that is we're going to make tuition free. So tuition for everybody, and we will forgive the national student loan. So everyone there is going, woo, that's a lot of money. So we're going to talk about that. So it's going to cost approximately $10.2 billion to ensure that every single Canadian can have access to post-secondary education. So they can go to university, so they can go to community college, so they can go to trades college. That's a lot of money. Australia is currently doing this. It is possible. And how are we going to do it? We're going to start by redirecting existing spending on the tuition tax credits. So currently a student gets a tax credit. We're going to redirect those fundings into there. We're going to cut the administration of the student loan program. So the National Student Loan Program has an administrative team, so we need to cut the administration portion of that. And then we're going to transfer hundreds of millions of dollars of student loan default that happens every year. That's written off every year. We're going to transfer that into it as well. So first of all, we'll get everyone the opportunity to be educated, and the money basically already exists with a little bit of top up, and we can do that so that every single Canadian has access to education. Another great program, which is great for the Fundy Royal area, is we're going to fund an apprenticeship program that's going to connect young aspiring farmers with farmers. So we want to get people that want to be farming into a farm and working with them in an apprenticeship program. In Canada, the food and farming industry has over 2 million employees, 2 million people working in it, compared to the oil and gas industry, which has 500,000 people. We need to be transferring those money into local economy, into farmers, because we need the food, we need food security. We realized during the pandemic that we had food shortages when the Suez Canal was blocked. We had shortages then. So we need to ensure that we're producing the majority of our food right here in Canada. Replacing 1/3 of imported food with domestic food. So 1/3 of the food that we import, if we replace that, which is what the Green Party wants to do, that would inject $15 billion into the local economy. $15 billion. Let that sink in by just eating food from a local farmer. So we need to start doing that. The Green Party is not providing tax credits to you or something you get when you file your taxes, because you need to make money to get that money back. We want you to be able to pay for things today, not tomorrow, and tomorrow. So you're going to get money right away. Thanks.
Thank you, Tim. Whitney?
Thank you. Okay, let's think about this for a moment. How do we attract new people to our rural community? Well, I think it starts with an immigration package or a repatriation package that includes a number of components that families want today. One would be daycare, $10 a day daycare that the Liberal government would like to roll out across this country. We currently have 8 provinces, 1 territory signed on for that. However, if a re-elected Liberal government doesn't reach that mandate, we won't be able to proceed with that. We don't have it yet here in New Brunswick, but hopefully we'll work with the provincial Higgs government to make that happen for our communities here. I think that's very important. It also has to include things like doctors and nurses, so available health care. Well, the Liberal government has a plan to hire 7,500 new doctors and nurses across the country. We also have a training component that we have. It is we double the union training and innovation program to $50 million a year to support more training opportunities and target more participation from women, Indigenous people, newcomers, persons with disabilities, and Black and rationalized Canadians. So I think we need to look at offering a complete package like that. And when we look at offering a package to people coming to this area, we have to look at broadband internet. We have to look at reliable internet services, because with it, internet services provides more opportunities for businesses, not only businesses, for people learning. If we're faced with a pandemic like this again, and the kids are sent home to learn, then we need to have a reliable internet service so that they can actually do their schoolwork from home. It's a very important concept, and it is no longer a luxury. It is a necessity. It goes right along with, well, that was timing, right along with electricity and running water. Internet is here to stay. So we need to provide rural communities greater access to a full suite of health and social services, professionals through greater student debt forgiveness for dentists, pharmacists, dental hygienists, and so on. We need to help rural economies by making the Regional Development Agency, FedNor, a standalone agency by 2023. So those new initiatives build on the Liberal government's leadership since 2015, when we've already created the Universal Broadband Fund to connect rural communities to the internet. We supported local businesses across Canada to weather COVID-19. We created a fund to build public transit in rural communities, so we have a fund for that. And we're launching a rural northern immigration pilot to bring skilled newcomers to smaller communities and help local economies grow.
Thank you, Whitney.
Thank you.
Wayne?
Thank you. The PCCs, they have an immigration plan, and they would target the immigration for the skilled labor shortage, and that would address that. And I agree that if the doctors and the nurses are coming here, we should have them. And to help those with education, well, right at the moment, I mean, there's been all kinds of plans to help with the immigration. It's been going on for years, or not immigration, the education, to retrain. And there's been programs after programs after programs for the last 30 years. Apparently, it hasn't worked. So we got to do better. We got to re-engineer these things so that they do what they're supposed to do. Like just for the shortage, we're going to have another shortage. Because right at the moment, the doctors and nurses are leaving or being forced out because they don't have their freedom. So are we going to be able to cover that shortage when it comes? Because it's right here, right now. 2 days down the road, 3 days down the road, whatever it is, 13th, right here in this hospital. So things have to change. We can't just start throwing more money at stuff and just watch it disappear, nothing happen. We got to start doing stuff with our money that makes sense all around for everybody, to include everybody. Simple as that. Common sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. We will now do questions from the public. We ask that you ask one question, and if you could raise your hand, then Paul will come over with the mic. Anybody?
I'll hold the mic and you just speak into it.
Okay. So, hi, my son Jackson is 13 years old, and I'm currently pregnant with another one on the way. And climate change is getting worse, and my kids will face the worst of it. So, and Canada's emissions have continued to go up. So what will you do to make sure my kids are protected and have a healthy planet to grow up in?
Start with Rob.
Thank you. We don't have to start with me every time. I don't know if you want to mix
okay.
it up, but... Oh, it's in the rules. Okay, sorry.
You're number one.
I drew number one. It's the rules. Okay. Thank you for your important question. And all of us care about leaving a better future for our children. That's why I was proud. Under a Conservative government, emissions were going down. You're right. They are going up now. We invested money in clean drinking water right here in New Brunswick, cleaning the air. We have a plan to bring down Canada's emissions. The approach the Liberals are taking is not working. The carbon tax now is set to go from $50 a ton to $170 a ton. That is a crushing price. A lot of the discussion this evening has been about the rising cost of groceries, the rising cost of energy, of fuel, of heating the home, the rising cost of homes. We've touched on all those things. $170 a ton carbon tax that increases the price of fuel by 40 cents per liter is not what rural areas like Fundy Royal need. This is not Toronto, it's not Montreal. So we need solutions to address this that are based on our reality, not the reality of someone that lives in Vancouver or Toronto or Montreal, but the reality that we live in here, that we have to drive, we have to get our kids to school and to hockey and all those things. And that's what our plan does. Our plan doesn't take money from Canadians and give it to the government. We know how good the government is at spending money. It means having your money in your own pocket that you can spend on green alternatives. That's our plan, and we don't believe that we can tax our way, as the Liberal plan, to a greener future. So far, it hasn't worked. Our plan that we had in the past, Canada's emissions were going down. So thank you for a great question. We all want a better future. I have children of my own, and we want a great future for them, but it's how we get there, and it's making sure that on the way to that greener future, we don't leave communities like Sussex and rural areas like Sussex behind. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Tim?
So we'll start with facts again, I guess. So the bottom has fallen out of this. The Conservative Party of Canada and the Liberal Party of Canada, when they were in power, neither of them have reached their targets, have met the targets that are needed. The Harper government, and Rob Moore was the MP during that time, certainly did not do anything to help us with the climate emergency. They wanted to remove us from the Kyoto Protocol. They did not want to be part of the Paris Agreement. I attended COP25 last year with Elizabeth May before the pandemic, and I learned a ton of things there. We need to act today. We need to act now. The Green Party is the only party in Canada that's going to stop subsidizing fossil fuels. We're going to take that money, we're going to invest it in farmers, we're going to invest it in small businesses. These are large industries that hire 500,000 people. The 2 million farmers and food processors in this country deserve the money to have their job so that we can guarantee that my niece and nephew or your children have a future. If we do not reach our targets, we will not have a habitable planet to live on. And that is not a question, it is a fact. We are currently already locked into 2 to 4 meters of sea level rise, and we are not on the going in the right direction in this country. We have the worst track record in the G20 for the climate emergency. We need to ensure that we're prepared. When 2 to 4 meters of sea level rises happen in this century, for my nieces and nephews, for your children, your grandchildren, where are they going to go? St. John will be underwater. The reversing falls will cease. It will be reversed permanently. We have New York City, 32 million people. Where are those 32 million people going to go? So we need to protect our borders. We need to ensure that we have an immigration policy that's going to deal with the climate. We need to ensure that we're meeting and exceeding our Paris Agreement targets. And we can do that by the government reducing themselves, by changing over their fleet to electric, by putting electric panels on, by not investing in technology that currently does not exist, and instead investing in renewable energy like wind power and solar, by ensuring that is accessible to Canadians, to ensure that we give them rebates so they can purchase it and is taken off at the purchase point. We need to put a carbon tax on to imported goods that are coming from countries that do not have a carbon tax. If elected, I would not support the Liberal carbon tax plan, and nor would I support the Conservative carbon tax plan, which wants to work as an air miles card, so it's so complicated we have no idea what's going on, because I'm sure we all have an HBC card or air miles or Aeroplan that have no idea how to redeem our points. We don't want that from the Conservatives either. We don't need another rewards card program. Thanks.
Thank you, Tim. Whitney?
Thank you. And congratulations. When's the date? Christmas time. Well, Merry Christmas to you. Well, I think the question you bring up is a really important one. And I think that we've talked about climate change for a very long time. And we've talked about going greener for even longer. It's always been on the fringe of all conversations around a boardroom, in other business areas. Everyone wants to go green, and I think they throw in, okay, we put green garbage bags, and we put blue garbage bags, and I think we're trying, but I agree it's not enough. Unfortunately, the Conservatives didn't even have it on their platform till a few months ago. I'm not sure they were convinced that it was a problem, so I applaud them for now having it on the platform, so good for you. Now, I think the Liberal platform is the best for green. I really do. I think it's affordable, I think it's manageable, and I think it's doable. So this is what we will do. Our re-elected Liberal government will continue to fight climate change and grow the economy. We'll create new middle-class jobs for Canadians by making Canada a world leader in battery to power a cleaner economy, helping industries adopt clean technologies to cut pollution, and supporting all workers to ensure no one is left behind. We will create greener communities with clean air by providing up to $5,000 towards zero-emission vehicle purchases for over 500,000 Canadians, building 50,000 more zero-emission vehicle chargers, requiring at least half of all passenger vehicles sold in Canada to be zero emissions by 2030, and all by 2035. Charting a path toward net zero buildings across the country, including continuing to provide $5,000 grants to upgrade homes, which will help Canadians save the energy cost. Creating 10 new national parks and 10 new national marine conservation areas over the next 5 years. And I don't agree, because we're rural, that we get a get-out-of-jail-free card on this initiative. This is a world issue. And if we want to keep our communities as we see them, these beautiful green spaces for our kids and our grandkids, we need to take action now. It can't be halfway. We need something doable and manageable and affordable for all Canadians. And I think we take those fossil fuel jobs and we transform those into green energy jobs. Better paying, better for the middle class. I think that's the way to go for Fundy Royal in the Sussex area. Thank you.
Thank you, Whitney. Wayne?
Well, thank you. That is a good question. And I'm going to put this out there. Climate's been changing since eternity. It changes up and down, like that. So it's cyclical. Now, if we're going to be underwater in St. John, that would mean maybe like people like Mr. Obama, who's right on board with this stuff, that you think he would be buying a $13 million home right on the beach? If he was worried about climate change and being underwater? I'm not thinking so. So, climate change is changing. It does. There's the climate disasters of the tornadoes and hurricanes. They've always been there. They always had a path. And we're building in front of them. Simple as that. So, and you can get the technology. They can build better houses. We can make them hurricane-strike houses. They're doing it now. There's stuff like that. The green energy for to cut the oil and gas, and we're going to start making electric cars and stuff like that. You see what they're doing with that? They're building all these places where you can plug your car in. Do you ever go around back and see what's running it? Oil and gas. Because there's a diesel generator running around there making the electricity for it. Has anybody ever looked into what these windmills, the carbon produced building a windmill? I imagine none of you have. But go take a look. Because there's a lot of carbon that goes spewed into the air building windmills. And mind you, there's probably technology out there that's going to work good. And I'm sure with the technology and innovation and the great minds that are out there, they can come up with better ideas. They certainly can. And there's been ideas out there that they've just sort of poop out, but they can make them work. They're out there. My idea?
Will you believe them if they come up with it? You don't believe it now, so why would you believe it if they came up with the technology?
Let them work at the technology.
Can we give
Okay.
Wayne his time, please, Tim? Thank you.
Well, that's okay. I mean, he's got a valid point. Freedom of speech. But the technology, this ain't the technology that's working right at the moment. You can't, if you're going to plug your car in, and it's got to run on oil and gas to get that energy into your car, you think we're going to run off batteries to heat your home this winter at 40 below zero? You are. You're going to have lots of batteries, aren't you? But and you're going to have a 3-day storm and you got no cloud or no sun. How are you going to do that? And it's too windy out to run a windmill. More batteries. Oh yeah, okay. Where are you going to put your house? Or you're going to fill your house up with batteries? Or where are you going to live? Tent outside?
Thank
Okay. Perfect.
Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you.
Do we have any more questions from the public? Oh, we have a few hands go up here. Paul?
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for the opportunity to ask a question. We've talked, and each of you have touched on this. I'm speaking tonight as a small business owner, and the shortage in the workforce is real. One of the things that I've seen that that really is a barrier is women's ability to return to the workforce when they have children. So I wanted to ask and give you a little bit more time to talk about your approach to reducing barriers for women to enter the workforce, and specifically the plan for childcare.
Thank you. We will start with Rob.
Well, thank you, Elena. And that is the number one question, as I mentioned, that I get from small business owners, not just in Sussex, but all over New Brunswick, all over Fundy Royal, is about the lack of employees to fill available jobs. So as I mentioned, we're bringing in training for people to re-enter the workforce. That has to happen because sometimes people need training. So the Canada Job Training Fund as well as the plan that I mentioned to assist financially with businesses that take on the risk of hiring a new employee to help pay some of that salary. Now, as you know, there's no, you mentioned childcare, and we know this back in the 1993 Red Book and the 97 Red Book and the 2000 Red Book, the Liberals have promised a national daycare program. They promise it every election. For over 20 years, they've been promising it. So they've signed some agreements in some provinces that will not benefit everybody that needs childcare. Not everybody. And we had this debate some time ago when they wanted to create a national child care program, and we said every family is different. We're going to provide direct funding to families. And as a matter of fact, families like that approach better. They like receiving funding directly to them so that they can make childcare choices for their family. Some parents have a child that stays with a relative. Some of them work shift work, so a traditional daycare doesn't work. So we want to make sure that families have maximum choice, so any money that would be spent allegedly under this new Liberal plan, we will be giving back directly to families. We feel, I remember at the time when we had the debate on it, one of the Liberal spokesmen said if families had this money, they'd spend it on beer and popcorn. Well, I can assure you that most of the families that I know, and hardworking in Fundy Royal, they use that money to pay for whether it's childcare or other child necessities. Everybody knows, the last questioner knows, raising children is expensive. And limiting the options that they have for childcare is not the answer. I want to see families, barriers removed for people to return to the workforce. And the best way that we can do that is giving families maximum choice in what they choose for childcare by providing that funding directly to families. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Tim?
Thank you, Elena, for the great question. So the Green Party has in their platform and has had it for over a decade to have universal childcare. So we absolutely support ensuring that childcare is universal and that the $10 childcare in New Brunswick, if it could get it to New Brunswick, we absolutely would support that, and I absolutely would vote in favor of that bill to ensure that every single person, every single woman could enter the workforce, and they're not limited by the fact that they can't find childcare for their kid. To clarify, the Conservatives plan to inject that money, the $60 billion into the economy. Most of that is after their the next 4-year tenure. That comes in 10 years from now. So I wouldn't quite believe everything you're reading. I would read into their platform to see when these dollars are going to be spent to ensure that you're going to get what you deserve. And so with that, universal basic income, again, we'll bring up that, universal livable income. So this has been piloted around the world. It works. So the $2,000 CERB check, if it didn't de-incentivize people from going to work and gave everyone enough money based on where they live in the country to lift themselves out of poverty, then I think we'll have more people entering the workforce and eliminate some of the barriers for women and men and people of minority groups. And I can tell you, Elon Musk, the guy who's putting things in space, agrees. He invented the other day an artificial intelligent robot that's going to be released in the next few years, and he said that will likely take away our workforce and be replaced with artificial intelligence. So we're going to need to change how we operate and change the economy because the future is coming. And then the last point is transportation. So if we can ease in getting people to work with public transit, green transit, we're reinvesting in electrifying the fleet and making sure that there's a bus service and rail service, expanding via rail. It's a crown corporation that is basically non-existent in the Maritimes. It take you 28 hours to get to Ottawa if you were an MP and wanted to travel by train. That is ridiculous. When you can travel on fast trains in Europe and Japan, and you can go like entire countries in that amount of time. So it is ridiculous. We need to be investing in rail. Our country was built on rail. We connected from coast to coast. We need to continue to invest in infrastructure on the rail system to ensure Canadians can get around and that it's green. It allows them to get to work. And so that's how we should do it. And the childcare thing, absolutely. We should be doing that for absolutely no reason why we would not invest in women in this country. Women deserve to be invested in. Women deserve to enter the workforce. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. And Whitney?
Hi, since I am the only woman up here, I think I can speak to this a little clearer. I can speak. Let's talk about my own experience. I had 2 children. I went to work. I always worked. And there were times it was difficult until I found a wonderful lady named Lois Snyder, locally in the Hillsborough Village. She was absolutely wonderful. She would take my children if they were sick. She would walk them all in a string down to the public library. She charged me a ridiculous amount of money to look after my children. And when I say ridiculous, I mean really affordable, very affordable. I was lucky. I had to drive, when I lived in Hillsborough, I was driving to Shediac every day, so 45-minute commute in one each way in winter snowstorms. And so it was such a peace of mind to know this wonderful, wonderful woman was looking after my children. Not everyone has that. I know that. I was very lucky. So the Liberal platform for offering $10 a day childcare, it's groundbreaking. That is, now, I'd like to say we thought of that ourselves, but let's be honest. This has been in Quebec, maybe not as affordable, but it has been in Quebec for a number of years and very successful. The only problem with the province of Quebec is there wasn't enough spaces, but we're promising to give more spaces to the province of Quebec so that they can expand their program to all Canadian women. So let me tell you, I don't know if you've heard this term before. We're calling it a she session. Have you heard that? Give me a nod. No? Okay, let me tell you what that's about. When COVID-19 hit, a lot, especially in the larger provinces, I was actually in Ontario when that started, so it was devastating. No one knew what to do. What do we do with our children? Children were all staying home from school. Now, I was lucky. My daughter was 16. But still, I had to help her. She'd never learned at home via the internet before. This was new for her. So what do you think women did, as usually being the caregivers? What do you think the women did with their jobs and their careers? Yes, they left the workforce. They had no choice. Someone had to stay home with those children and help them with their studies every day. And maybe it's not fair, maybe it's not right, but it's usually women that are doing that. So what kind of economic impact does that have on our country? Well, I can tell you, it takes a whole species away from the workforce. So they're not spending money, they're not out making money, and it's just really not fair. So our $10 a day daycare, we're hoping to bring that to all of Canada. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, Whitney. Wayne?
Thank you. Well, as you can hear, it's all going to cost you some money. Everything there's talking about is going to cost you more money. Well, I agree we've got to do something about daycare. Well, why not, reduce taxes? Reduce corporate taxes. Reduce your family taxes. Wouldn't that put more money in your pockets? Wouldn't that create the more jobs? Wouldn't that maybe create the more daycare spaces? Just by reducing taxes. To me, that's a good plan. I don't like the government in my pocket. It's been picked enough. And if the PC plan, reduce to balance the budget and then start reducing these taxes. And when we start reducing the taxes, the business will pick up, the jobs will be created. We got to get the oil and gas coming back here. We got to get the oil coming through to St. John. If you want to build the tracks, perfect, and get that oil coming down through. Preferably not on the tracks, though. But we get the pipelines going, and that'll create more money. Quebec has their daycare there, but who really funded that? Alberta, Saskatchewan, with all the transfer of the money, all the money transferred to them. I mean, they last year they had an $8 billion surplus, and Alberta's going in the hole. I mean, we got to make things fair again. We got to use common sense on stuff. Make it fair for everybody. And I wish I had the gift of gab, so I'm going to just sit down and be quiet for a minute.
Thank you, Wayne. Do we have any more questions? A couple hands.
Oh, okay, thank you. I have a question regarding repealing of Bill C-10 and C-36, protecting our free speech. I do business on the internet. I do a lot of pretty much all of us uses the internet on a daily basis. And we're seeing a stymieing of our free speech. Trudeau has talked to the people in Facebook to start censoring certain speech. Personally, I don't see that we need to have our free speech limited or censored. I just want to know what each one of you feel about these bills that the Liberal government is putting through for protecting free speech.
Thank you. We will start with Rob.
Well, thank you for the question. And it's funny, really. Bill C-10, you're right. It's a bill designed with the government and internet service providers and others to police what is on the internet. And it's tremendously problematic because, you know, we have a government that doesn't like to be criticized. So that can limit the ability of people in Canada to be able to speak freely. But the most ridiculous one is Bill C-36. I think it was introduced the last day we were in Parliament. So the government knew that Parliament was going to rise. The Prime Minister probably knew at that moment that he was going to call an unnecessary election. But then they bring in a bill about hate speech. Now, hate speech, we should all be protected from hate speech, and we should all condemn hatred in all of its kind and bigotry. But the hate speech provisions that the Prime Minister brought in, which is we already have in our criminal code laws against hate speech, and inciting hatred against another person is a criminal code offense. But this bill was brought in to add hate speech back into the Human Rights Act. And what we saw in the past, instead of being a shield against hate speech for different groups, that legislation was being used as a sword to go after people for saying things that people didn't like. And, you know, one of the great things that we need to celebrate, we need to be on guard for, is freedom of speech. And that's why I look at, like, the one bill was never going to go anywhere. They introduced it on the last day, but it's problematic. C-10 is very problematic. And each one of us, we come here today with different views. And some of what I've heard today I agree with. Some of what I've heard today I disagree with. But every one of us should be committed of the right of all Canadians to speak freely. And that is a right that we look what's happening in Afghanistan right now. Look what's happening to people that are losing everything. Freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the right of women to be educated, the right of women to even be a participant in society, just to drive a car. All of that gone. In Canada, this is one of the blessings of living here is our freedoms. Freedom of religion, freedom of speech. We must do everything we can to protect those freedoms.
Thank you, Rob. We'll have Tim.
It's a tricky subject because we need to absolutely maintain freedom of speech. Every Canadian deserves the right to be able to voice their opinion and voice their thoughts. It reminds me, in the UK, in London, you can go to a corner every Saturday and stand on a soapbox and say whatever you want, and it's part of the culture there. You absolutely have that right, and the bill, it's tricky because there's so much misinformation online that people can't even agree that the global pandemic exists. That is an issue when we're in the middle of a global pandemic. My mother, who is a healthcare worker, is gowning up and has people sick, and she's dealing with that, but there's people online saying that does not exist. They say that climate change does not exist, when it's scientific fact that these things exist. So we need to ensure that we're not infringing on the rights of Canadian citizens, but at the same time, we are protecting the public's interest. And the public's interest here is ensuring that factual information can be pushed down to the masses. And at the same time, you can have your opinion that it doesn't exist, but it cannot look like a news article that says that it does not exist. Because there's a big difference. There's a large portion of the population that does not know what a peer-reviewed journal article is. What it means that all of the scientists, or 80 or 90% of the scientists, agree that climate change exists and that we're moving in that direction. That we're in the Holocene and we're moving out of it. Yes, climate does change, but we've been stable for over 10,000 years, and now we're pushing that out with projections exactly in line with the Industrial Revolution. So these are facts, and we need to ensure that that information is provided to the citizens while not infringing on your rights. So it is very tricky, and I understand where you're coming from to ensure that you have the right to tell me that you don't like me online. Okay, fine, you don't like me. I'll move on with my life. But the fact is, climate change exists, and we need to ensure that things that are posing as media are not provided as factual information to the masses, because people are having a hard time deciphering what is real and what is not. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Whitney?
Hi. I agree with both of my colleagues. Freedom of speech is a fundamental right for everyone in the world. And I think that hinging on that in any way would be a sacrilege, for sure. But I also know the internet today, as we see it, is the wild, wild west. There are no controls in place on what content is placed on the internet. As Tim has already suggested, there is so much misinformation on the internet that there really needs to be some kind of level of oversight as to what goes on there. So Tim brought up some really good points. So there's misinformation. So about climate change, about some really relevant issues. And let's never forget what happened in the United States in the election in the Trump era. I mean, it was definitely misconstrued, and the data was stretched in different ways. There was so many things that went wrong with that in a digital, and there was no oversight on that, none whatsoever. But let's look at it even differently. So that's an opinion. So I completely agree. I have a Facebook page. People don't like some of the things that the Liberal platform stands for. I think you have every right to say that, and you should. But think about people. Talk about young kids today when you're growing up. How many selfies are out there? How many parties do they go to? And they post these online. And there is nothing to govern what goes online right now. It's hard to take things down. To have a digital, I would not want to be a young person in today's world to have to worry about everything I say and everything I do posted on the internet with no governance and really no mechanism in place to remove it. You have a digital footprint for life when you put something negative on there. So without an oversight, without some kind of governing body looking at the information online, or at least someone you can report it to, then there's no mechanisms for recourse. I completely understand if it's stemming your business in any way. Online businesses are our future, and let's face it, the digital world is our future. So we do have to find a way to find that happy medium between the two. So those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Whitney. Wayne?
Thank you. A couple of things here. If you don't want to post it online, take a little personal responsibility. You know what's going to happen. They all know what's going to happen. If they want to post it online, they can take the responsibility. People got to have their own personal responsibility now. Okay, now we're going to hit on the science and the peer-reviewed. If we're going to look at peer-reviewed says hydrochloroquine works. Peer-reviewed says ivermectin works. But yet, they're fining doctors $10,000 in places if they prescribe it, or they're losing their licenses if they're prescribing it. This stuff was made for COVID. Dr. Fauci said it was made for COVID in 2005 or 8, whenever it was. We had the SARS. Go read his little speech he did back then about it. It all worked for it. Peer-reviewed. I downloaded 250 some odd studies. And I'm not a scientist, but I read what they're after and what the conclusions. And at that time, 222 of them were peer-reviewed and said hydrochloroquine worked. So, I mean, if you want to believe the science, let's believe the science. And on free speech, I got silenced on Facebook for 30 days because I put Kerry Mullis, a quote from Kerry Mullis, the inventor of the PCR test, that he said. And I got booted off Facebook for 30 days for that. That wasn't hate speech. That was a quote the inventor of that PCR test made. Now, is that free speech? It's not. And we do have to, like, there's free speech, yes, okay. They're silencing me online, but they can't take porn off Facebook or Twitter. It's all out there. But they silence me, but they can't take that off. What's wrong with that? I mean, we got to start. We got something up here, and there's smarter people than me out there, and to start silencing the people. Like, I agree with the science. I'll believe the scientists that actually work with the climate change, but not the ones that are paid by the people pushing climate change. I'll believe the ones that are doing it on their own. Just like the scientists that they're dealing with COVID. They're dealing on their own. I'll listen to them. I'm not going to listen to the media and politicians to tell me about my health care. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. Do we have any other questions?
It's just a follow-up question to freedom of speech. And we all know the intention of Facebook was for people to socialize, and it should be taken as that. But when you have, in communist countries, the government controls what you see on the news every night, and you get brainwashed. And one thing that Canada is very lax at is controlling. Now the government has been controlling the media by supporting them, by funding millions of dollars every year. And our kids, our grandparents, everybody has to sit there and watch the news and see this. So we have to start with the government getting out of the media if we're going to hear the truth in Canada.
Do we have any more questions? We ask that you keep it to questions, please.
Okay. Well, here tonight, I understand that we're all very family-minded. We're concerned about our jobs, about our children, their education, daycare assistance, et cetera, et cetera. And as Wayne would say, all these new programs does cost money. So I appreciate what you've all said tonight. I have a question that we've read about in the paper and about a family situation. Tim has hit one situation early tonight. I have another one if your parties could explain about the abortion law, and is a free abortion even for a woman or lady who, because of her career, never plan on getting pregnant, but she wants an abortion. And how far do we go? What's the limitations on abortion? Is it free for all, or are there limitations on this?
Thank you. We will start with Rob.
Well, thank you for the question. And I think the law, as you stated it, is correct, that's the law in Canada. I know as the Conservative Party, in our platform, we've said that we're not going to be revisiting the abortion law in Canada. I should know, I was very troubled to see coming from the Liberal platform about threats to take away the the charitable tax credit for crisis pregnancy centers. There's some wonderful centers around New Brunswick and around Canada that are doing great work, but we see in their platform that they're threatening to take away their charitable status. So I disagree strongly with that. Everything that we're talking about tonight, we shouldn't be weaponizing charitable status. We shouldn't be weaponizing the internet, freedom of speech, and the idea that you want to limit other people's views or expressions. And I will touch on what Steve said. He made a statement there, but Bill C-10 is not just about regulating what people can see and so on. It's about treating streaming services like they treat regular television, and meaning that there'd be a certain amount of content that people would have to see. So I wanted to touch on that, Steve. But to answer your question, that is the state of the law in Canada. And it's as you know, I'm a pro-life person, but we've said that our leader Aaron O'Toole has said that we'd not be introducing legislation to change the law on that. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Rob. Tim?
I'm going to start by saying the only person up here that should have an opinion on this is Whitney. So I'm a man, and I don't have the right to comment on women's bodies and what they can and cannot do it. If they told a white male, as an example, that he is going to be snipped when he hits puberty, we'd have a huge discussion and a huge problem on our hand in our country. So I absolutely agree to ensure that women have access to health care, and that would include abortions if they deem that they personally need it. So the fact that Clinic 554 is not open in this province is an issue. The fact there's only 3 hospitals in this province that allow abortions is an issue. It is not accessible by the population. It's against the Canada Health Act. The abortions is a right under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms because you have the right to your body. And so I'm not going to go down that road and saying how a woman should or should not control their body, as you or anyone else, or any man in this room, would not want someone telling them that they have restrictions on what they can do with their body.
Thank you, Tim. And Whitney?
Well, surprising.
Oh, you're not on.
Oh,
I'm not on.
Still me.
you're good.
Hi. Well, I'm not going to surprise anyone when I say I'm pro-choice. Having a baby is it's a big event. It's a joyous event. But I am not someone who will tell someone else that that's how they should feel because there's so many other circumstances that can come into play when we're talking about having a child. So I am pro-choice all the way. I think the woman's right to choose what happens with our body is our own. The partner can definitely have a say, but ultimately we're the ones carrying that child for 9 months, and it's not only even the 9 months. It's a long time commitment. I mean, I love my children, and I've never had to face that situation, but I don't know what the circumstances, and I don't think we can define that for one person. There's not one answer to that question. And so what do? Establish a set of criteria that says, oh, well, if this happened and this happened, and okay, then it's okay. But if this happened and this happened, and you can't. You have to carry that. I don't think anyone is in a position to do that, and nor should they be. I don't think that should be anything that government regulates or anyone else regulates, whether church or state or anyone else. I think that's a personal choice, and I will stand by that. I feel very strongly about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Whitney. And Wayne?
Thank you. I'm going to say, I'm not really up to speed on that one through the PPC policy. I'm going to tell you my personal opinion on that, and it's just my opinion. I'm pro-life, and if it comes down to a vote in Ottawa, That's the way I'd be voting. But I also agree that she has the right to her body, and I have a right to mine. And it's right here, right now. I'm going to be forced, or they're going to force. So if it's going to be good for one, it's got to be good for everybody. Freedom of choice. And it's about all I can say on that. I mean, I'd like to say it's just my personal opinion. So thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. The candidates will now each have 3 minutes to summarize their platform. And we will start with Rob.
Well, thank you, everybody. You know, when we started this, it was daylight, and now it's dark. It's been a long event and a well-run event. So thank you to the Chamber for putting this on. We appreciate it. And thank you to all of you that came out to hear from the different candidates. Obviously, there's different views here. I'll start off by saying most Canadians agree we shouldn't be having an election right now. But we are. We're having an election because Justin Trudeau wants to get a majority government. And he's had an ethically challenged government, to say the least. 3 ethics violations, more than any other prime minister by a factor of 3. And we have a government that does not deserve to get a majority by calling an election in the middle of a pandemic. But we're having one. So we have an important choice to make on September 20th. I have a proven track record. If it was bright enough out, you could see that delivering for rural New Brunswick, delivering for Fundy Royal, that's what I've done. The arena, the Athosards Arena, the Princess Louise Show Park, the tennis courts, all around, the senior center, the mural projects, even the completion of the Fundy Trail. I secured $25 million. I mentioned that. I'm not bragging about my track record or what I've done, but I was only able to do that because we had a government that understood not everybody lives in Toronto. Not everyone lives in Montreal or Vancouver. That's where the Liberal Party's vast number of members of Parliament are from. We need a government that understands urban, yes, but also rural. And that's what's been lacking. Do you know that formerly I was Minister for ACOA when some of those projects were completed? I was the last Atlantic Canadian Minister of ACOA. ACOA stands for Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency. Of course, the minister since 1987 was always an Atlantic Canadian. But under this government, it's only been, they've had a minister from Ontario and a minister from Quebec. That is a slap in the face to all the Liberal members of Parliament from the region, but also to all of us. The minister for ACOA should be from Atlantic Canada. We need to get projects going again. It was a great tragedy when the Energy East pipeline was shut off. People say, well, what about the emissions from oil development? Those emissions are taking place right now. Right now, today, there's ships from Saudi Arabia parked outside of St. John. It just means the jobs are there instead of here. I'm going to fight for jobs for our community, for lower taxes, standing up for law-abiding citizens, and I will continue to fight for Fundy Royal, that they get the federal dollars that we so richly deserve here in a rural riding. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate you taking part.
Thank you very much, Rob. And Tim?
So again, I'm going to reiterate the Green Party is the only party that is using the facts and the scientific information that were provided in order to ensure the safety of our planet. And so I'm not your normal tree hugger. I work on the base. I work in a conservative environment. I certainly travel and I buy carbon offsets when I need to do that. I try to be as responsible as I can. And so does everybody, but so does the government. The government needs to be providing that leadership and demonstrating the entire Government of Canada fleet could be changed over to electric vehicles. Rob talks about his proven track record. If you compared Rob's proven track record to Elizabeth May's proven track record, you'll find that we are not getting what we deserve in Fundy Royal. We need better representation. Fundy Royal was progressive and has always been progressive. You look at the vote split in the last election, majority of the people are progressive. We made the UN Declaration of Human Rights draft. It was a progressive person that did that. So we need to ensure that we're voting in progressive people. Get to know your candidates, get to know their platforms, and ensure that you're being represented in Ottawa properly. This Johnny 2-for-1 or peeler card idea of the Conservative Party and the rewards points for your carbon offset is complicated and confusing, and we need to get away from that, make things simple for Canadians, and ensure that their safety exists. That's all we need to do. And the Green Party has an outlined platform where we're going to take money from the large companies and from the richest Canadians, and we're going to funnel that to the people that deserve it. And that's you and I and everyone in here, all the middle-class people. Yeah, so we're going to do that by also protecting human rights. So the women, which we just talked about, LGBTQ community, we should not be reopening whether same-sex marriage is okay or whether abortion is okay. And the Conservative Party has presented those bills in the last sitting. And so that should not be happening in 2021. We have bigger issues to deal with, and we have to move forward instead of moving backwards. This is not 1950, 1970 anymore. We are in 2021, and we need to be looking into the future to make sure that my niece and my nephew have a future to live in. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. And Whitney?
Well, thanks, everyone. I don't have a proven track record to go on. This is my first time running in a federal election and really running an election at all at any level. And let me tell you why. Well, for the last 24 years, I've been raising children, and I feel this job is one that requires 24/7. It's not a 9-to-5 job, and I wasn't willing to compromise family over jobs. It's unfortunate that women have to think that way, but that is the reality. It certainly was my reality. There may be some people out there that have very supportive partners, but that's not the case for everyone. So I'm very happy to be here tonight. And just to let you know that I've always wanted to do this, but I always wanted to have the time to do it. So my youngest, as I said, just graduated from virtual high school this year, and here I am, your Liberal candidate for Fundy Royal. Thank you. So our platform will continue to get Fundy Royal through the pandemic in a number of ways. We'll accelerate climate action by creating new jobs, cutting pollution in the oil and gas sector, and making our communities cleaner with zero-emission vehicles. Help the people of Fundy Royal in Sussex buy new homes. Deliver $10 a day childcare. Make everyone pay their fair share, even the wealthiest people in Canada. And the big banks. Build a fairer Canada fighting systemic racism and discrimination and combating hate in all its forms. Let's not talk about a gay marriage anymore. Let's just talk about a happy marriage. Walk the shared path of reconciliation by addressing the legacy of colonialism and residential schools. That will be a black mark on Canadian history for forever. And I hope it is. We need to understand what we did and learn from those mistakes. We need to finish the fight against COVID-19, and that's supporting proof of vaccination credentials and mandatory vaccines. We need to keep our communities healthy with transformative investments in the strength of our universal public health care, in primary care, long-term care, and mental health. The Liberal government platform is the only way forward. This is the platform to build back better. The only one that acknowledges that we need to recover from this pandemic using methods that are different from the past and going to the root of the issue, opposed to offering more tax savings. We need to build a better future, one that gives everyone a fair chance at success. It's time to have another Liberal represent the people of Fundy Royal, and I hope to have your support on Election Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Whitney. And we'll go to Wayne.
Thank you. I agree with Rob. We should be having the East Pipeline. You're right, the boats are sitting out there. That's not where it should be. We should have the pipelines going. But this is basically coming down to one thing. And in, 13, 14 days, you're going to make one of the you're all sitting here, you're going to witness history, is what you're going to witness. And you got a choice to make, because on September 20th, you're at that fork in the road, and you're going to have to choose a path. Down one path, it's looking a lot like socialism, and I'm not liking that. Down the other path, you're going to look a lot more freedom, a lot more fiscal responsibility, and personal responsibility, and getting out of your pockets. And just the freedom, everything, we should be free. It's a free country. We should have our freedoms, the freedom to choose. And when you mark that ballot, that's what you're marking. And one way or the other, history's going to be there. They did it in the 30s and the 40s. You've seen what happened. And we're walking down that path again. So come Tuesday the 20th, you're going to make that X, and we're going to see what that history is going to look like. Thank you kindly for all coming out here tonight. And thank everybody.
Thank you, Wayne. Thank you, everyone. We will now have the president, Paul Bedford, come up for some closing remarks.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to keep it short and sweet here. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I hope you were able to gain some insight into what these candidates are going to do or not do for your area. And I'm hoping that this will help you make an informed choice on September 20th. The Sussex District Chamber, that's what we do these events for, is that you can have the first-hand knowledge. You're not reading somewheres, you're not looking on Facebook. I've heard that thrown out here so much tonight. You've got it from the source. Make that decision and make it with knowledge that you've gained right here from the people. I want to thank all the candidates for first coming out here tonight, and second, of taking the time to go out and put your name out there. That's a big task. I understand that. And congratulations to you all for doing that, stepping up for the community. I'd also like to thank Vanessa, Beth, Harley, Mark, Kathy. Everybody was here from the board of directors of the chamber. It takes quite an effort to pull something like this off, to get everything all lined up. Mother Nature was on our side tonight, thankfully. Vanessa doesn't have the best track record